Hey, it's that time again, 6 p.m. on Pacific on Sunday. Welcome to Steve's Place. Tonight we're going to have a special show. I'm going to be doing a presentation on GEET technology. We had a really good show last week, and this week I'm doing this solo due to the technical problems we had. Anyway, before we get started, let me remind everyone to get signed up for the 2023 Extraordinary Technology Conference. Discounts are still 30% unless you sign up tonight after the show. I'll give you a 35% discount after the show. And anyway, I've been updating the membership list. I mean the speaker list online there. Just go to testatech.info and click on the conference area, and that will get you right to the speaker list. You know, it's being updated a couple times a week, it seems like. And I'd also like to encourage all of you to become members of the Testatech YouTube channel. We have 30 years of innovative ideas there. We cover the Extraordinary Technology Conferences, Exotic Research Conferences, and the Global Science Congresses. I'm up to 1995 on Global Science, and I'll be updating it soon. And then later on, we'll be adding on the Conference of Free Energy. And I have some Tesla Society videos from back when I organized the Society's conferences. I'll be putting those on as well later on. To get to it, easiest way is just to go to our channel, our Testatech channel, or page, www.testatech.info, and go click on the Testatech channel and get you right to the channel. We also have a conference directory and speaker directory, and of course we have a direct line to Steve's Place Live. And like I say, these videos you can't get elsewhere. And a lot of these people that we have up there are no longer with us. And so, and a lot of them had videotapes made back in the days when videotapes were just emerging. So this is hard to get material. And anyway, once again, I'd like to reiterate, we want you to get an exclusive membership, an extraordinary bargain for $9.99 a month. You have global access 24/7 to hundreds of member-only videos. We have over 900 videos up there. So I'm sure you'll find something that would interest you. We ask that you join. It's $9.99 a month, and I think you'll find it very worthwhile because you can access these videos 24/7 from around the world, including the Ukraine. And without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of jump into our material. Okay. Okay, many of you, I'm sure, have met Paul Pantone. Paul was an extremely good friend of mine, and he's the inventor of GEET, which is basically a plasma generator that replaces your carburetor. And it can be used in just about any configuration, although most of us have seen them in engines and that. Paul has actually made a furnace. That thing he holds is actually a furnace. And from that furnace, it forms the basis of his Homestead. Now, the Homestead power system consists of the GEET furnace, which is the primary converter. Again, and from that, the input would be like a fuel system. I mean, you can have liquids, you can have solids, you can have gases. GEET will run on anything properly configured. And from the, it goes into the furnace, and from the furnace, you get the gas storage because you always have excess gas being generated. And you'll be able to have the hot and cold exchange because where you have heat, you have cold. And so you'll be able to pull that off the furnace. And you can use some of the gas to go in and generate electricity, either through the gas or who knows. Anyway, part of the power system, I drew these up, back in the day. And one of the things I was looking at was making a homestead power system. And this one here would be for air conditioning and heating, where you'd have a pump and you have your radiators, um, and you have your squirrel cage blower to kind of blow through all these radiators. I was designing this thing to be built out of junk and to um, by anyone who had any kind of mechanical bent. You know, um, at one time, like if you go back here, you see that square box in the middle. Well, that there would be the heart of the system. Basically, it's just a series of valves which redirects the water. So in the winter, um, they'd have the heat flowing through in one direction, which puts hot water through those radiators. And then the wintertime, or in the wintertime, you have it putting hot water through the radiators. In the wintertime, or summertime rather, you flip the switch and it will redirect all the water flow, and you'd be able to get um, cold air cold air through from the radiators. Um, one of the tanks, would be hot water, and one of the tanks would be cold water. And here's a better picture, I think. And as you can see, uh, we also would have the electrical generation system, which would uh, could use heat to generate electricity with. We have some ideas on that too. Um, and this was also designed that you could also turn this and hook it into the solar system and be pouring off hot water from your solar panels and that. You know, um, a lot of times, a lot of the heat that you see being generated off of like the solar panels, those solar panels get hot, and you could take and you could put um, water pipes behind that and absorb some of that heat, keep those uh, solar cells cooler, and use that heat for like hot water, for like showers, that, and for our system here. Um, okay, here's the heart of it. This is Paul's dream here. This was um, the furnace. Okay, now I said that you could burn solid fuel in the GEET, and if any of you have ever seen the GEET device, here it is there. If you want to see it better, you can take in there's a little square box to the right side of your thing, and you can bring this thing up to a full screen and see the writing a lot clearer. But anyway, on this here, you have your the exhaust goes in one direction, the exhaust from the engine, and then it goes through a muffler up on your right there. And on the intake side, you have like your bubbler, okay. And as you're sucking air through the intake, okay, as you're sucking air through, uh, initially through a butterfly valve, but later on it gets turned off and you go directly from the engine or through the bubbler. The bubbler takes and you go through the center tube there. This is like a tube within a tube. And you see this rod in the middle, which is the heart of the whole thing. That's a stainless steel rod, and or steel rod, and he sees how it has a tip to it. Um, and the thing with the tip and everything is like when you have the tip going on, you have like the Bernoulli effect and the Venturi effect. One will increase the speed and increase the volume, okay, at the same time, and increases the pressure, okay. Anyway, and when it does that, it's like it has the flow of the gas going through, and it kind of like let's see, it kind of like twists the molecular structure there, popping everything out, and creates its own plasma. Now, the orientation of the rod is very important because if the rod is backwards, it puts an opposing magnetic field on which prevents the plasma from being generated. If it's in the right, it will have a magnetic force that will enhance the plasma you're trying to generate, and it gets better and bigger and faster on you. Uh, Paul told me at one time that he found later that uh, the length of the rod, the important thing was have it long enough to accommodate the transaction. Okay, if it was too short, you couldn't get the plasma to occur, and if it was too long, well, all that happened is that part of the rod didn't get magnetized. So uh, he had various things for different fuels, but basically what you'd use is a rod that would cover the whole range of them. You didn't have to worry about it at that point. Um, Let me go back. So yeah, so that is your basic GEET reactor. And here you see it in a horizontal position, okay, where your intake and exhaust is coming from the engine on the left, and on the right you see the exhaust, the final exhaust and the intake from the bubbler. Now, if we go back, okay, here, uh, the reaction chamber is right in the center of that flame, and it's in a vertical position. And so the characteristics are a little bit different, but that's where the reaction is. Uh, so what you would have here is off on your right, you could have some kind of stove there, something you can burn, okay, and you pinch off the chimney, of your stove there. And you can burn garbage in it, you can burn wood in it, you can burn anything you want in it. But what happens is uh, the fumes get sucked into the chimney, goes down this tube into the bubbler, and it bubbles up through the bubbler, and then it leaves the bubbler after bubbling through the bubbler, and that gets rid of a lot of the trash and everything that would be in it, the ash and that, and it gets sucked down into the reaction chamber, and it goes down through, and you see the P, that is a pump. That pump is extremely important. You could probably use Paul told me he would use like a smog pump off a car would work. And you take and you create the vacuum for the reaction chamber, because all this has to happen in a vacuum. Because with the vacuum, all reactions occur at a lower temperature. And that's the kind we can have low temperature plasma. Is because it's actually in a vacuum. Unlike a lot of these conventional scientists, not orthodox scientists, when they study plasma and that, they're doing it in atmospheric conditions, and so it takes them a lot more temperature. Okay, now this P here is a high temperature pump. Okay, and with that, it's pumping and pushing the air out into where it splits. Okay, and you have two regulators there. Okay, one will be regulating, the one to the left regulates the air going out to, let's say you have a tank out there, like a big propane tank. You store this gas and you can use it in cars and that, or you can, pressurize the propane tanks, for instance, and use it as a regular gas. They call it GEET gas. The other one that goes straight up goes into a nozzle. Okay, and the nozzle is where the flame is, just like on a regular stove. Okay, the air vents that you see there are actually air vents in the copper tubing. We'll go back to here. At the bottom of the slide here, at the bottom of the furnace there, so there's a bunch of air vents. That's what that is referring to when it says air vents. So allow the air to come in and circulate. Okay, and then you also see there's these little lines across the center there, the AC tubing. The top is the input, and that would be hot water. And what happens is the heat of the flame kind of sucks out the heat of the pipe, and what comes out the bottom would be cold water or cold fluid, or you could use air. But that's how air conditioning comes off of this thing. Where you have heat, you have cold. it's kind of like how uh, refrigerators and RVs, work. I don't know if you ever lived in an RV or worked on an RV, but what they have is they have uh, you have to have propane to make them run, unless they also have an electric compressor. But with the propane, it creates the heat, which then in turn creates the cold. Now this one here, also, I don't know if you look off to the left, you see liquid fuel. And you can have like a gas tank or anything that you want instead of that stove. And and it will go to the bubbler. And the bubbler, it makes into an aerosol and gets poured into the reaction chamber, just like a regular typical GEET um, thing. Now, I also sent out, our caller line there. And if any of you have questions, you could call in and everything. But I think that with Paul's invention here, um, he's totally revolutionized combustion as I know it. And I think, that if more study was done on it, we could all come on with a lot more, you know. So, anyway, I think that's about all I have on this right at the moment. I came up with this back in 2001, and I was going to give it at that conference, but we had such problems at the conference, I didn't have a chance to even speak. It was like one fire after the other, which brings me back to our conference up in coming up. I encourage you all to get signed up for this conference, at a 30% discount. It's very affordable. We'll have David there, and David will have his, um, will be speaking. And he also has a school now for those who would like to learn more about GEET. You can contact him at gotgeet@proton.me. Uh, I think David, has all the coursework that is that, all that will be made available to the people who are signed up for his classes and that. Um, I, I and I think he'll also make available his dad's book, his book one on GEET, which has all the scientific inventions that his dad came up with. Uh, like I said, I think Paul is very smart guy. I mean, I learned a lot from him. Uh, GEET there, they found like in this reactor here, in the middle of the reactor is where the heat spikes and then drops down rapidly. You know if this thing is working or not, if where you see on the right there, that little exhaust, you should be able to hold that with your hand. If you can't hold it with your hand, then the reaction is not occurring. You're not getting a reaction out of this, and you have a vacuum leak somewhere along the line. Um, the other thing I like you notice is on the right there, we have the two valves here coming off towards the bubbler, and one takes air right out of the bubbler, okay, and it forces it into the reactor. Actually, it's the vacuum um, pulling the thing. But we also have an auxiliary input there where you need to use to get it started, because and then as the reaction starts working, you turn that um, auxiliary off slowly, but and then eventually everything you get comes to that bubbler. Um, I found, when people put their faces right up in that exhaust and everything, they've told me, that don't smell like any exhaust they've ever smelled. And I've ran it for hours on things like root beer, Pepsi, coffee. Some of the stuff I had problems with was like brake fluid, and I think that's because molecular change is so long. They're tightly bound in order to give you a better braking reaction, so they won't wear down. Um, Chemistry is a great field to be in. The other thing is, you could take and replace that bubbler with a septic tank, and then you take the septic tank and you have two tubes, one that goes out through the top all the way to the bottom of the tank, and the other tube would be like the input for the reactor. And so as it percolates through uh, the waste, you're pulling off the methane, and that will work in that reactor. And that Paul said a family of four could supply a house for a whole year. Yeah. So this is a very, like I say, versatile invention here. Anything that burns, GEET can work on. And the other thing, you might want to consider is like on the going back to the furnace, is if instead of this furnace, okay, you could take and you can put this in, like, let's say a coal-fired generating plant, one of the big ones, they used to generate megawatts and everything. This same technology could be used on that. And instead of spewing out all these tons of carbon dioxide, if they would use the GEET reaction chambers inside of those furnaces there, they could be releasing lots more oxygen. Because this thing breaks down the molecular structure of all fuels into its basic elements like carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Because it does that, you don't get the carbon monoxide or the carbon dioxide you do with other combustion systems. You're turning your vehicle from an oxygen user into an oxygen generator. You're unleashing, okay, the oxygen that's locked up in the carbon fuels, and you're separating the carbon out from the fuel itself. And the carbon by itself is a very good soil additive, which our soils do not have enough of, um, especially since we've chopped down all of our trees and everything, and we don't leave the carbon mass in there. And if you go to a company called Acres USA, they have a lot to say about carbon and adding carbon to the soil. And a nation that destroys the soil destroys itself. And we don't do enough to take care of our air. We don't do enough to take care of our soil. And GEET is one way that we can start doing this. Now, this is in an experimental stage. I would never, ever tell anyone to go and take your workhorse car or vehicle and use it for this. This is what you get junk engines for, or junk cars. Cars that are unreliable for your own transportation. Keep your reliable transportation. Get yourself a used vehicle for this kind of stuff, or used lawnmowers and that, and play with this stuff. We have the plans online. In the email that I sent out, there's a button on there. If you click on that button, you'll have a step-by-step plans on how to build a GEET technology. All I can say is play with it and try it out. I'm sure that you'll find some interesting things. So anyway, if there's any questions, I'm ready to do this. Yeah, and I see one of our first comments here is about Paul and Molly on the WWCR shortwave radio station on the Stan Solomon show. I remember those days. When I was at the Tesla Society, we had our own show on WWCR on Sundays at this time. This kind of here kind of replaces that, and I hope that this helps everyone understand. Okay, the biggest barrier to mass production of GEET engines. Right now, they're still in the experimental stage, okay? A lot more needs to be done. You look at today's cars and that, they have computerized, and they went in and they know exactly how things burn and everything, and the computer adjusts the carburetor. Well, this needs to be done with the same thing, because on Paul's automobile plans, he has a thing called uh, an air manager, and has a bunch of valves in it, controls the amount of air getting into that GEET. That has to be controlled. Right now you have to do it manually, but like I say, things just need to be studied. In one of my back issues of the magazine, we covered where MIT, when they came up with an invention that mimics GEET, except that they use electric power to heat the fuel, whereas Paul uses the heat right off the engine to heat up that fuel. So, but it just takes more study and dedication to people. The more people that experiment these things, the easier it is to get things to happen. I think even bigger than the heat engines would be like these power plants. I wish that some executive in some power company like Con Ed or somebody would see this and look into it. Because this could be a better solution than carbon sequestration. Which they take and they try to capture carbon dioxide in these chimneys, and then they pump it into the ground. And all that is, you're just moving it from one location to another. And I've seen it where you get so much carbon dioxide pumped into the ground that pressure rises it, and it stores it to the point where it's not releasing it at a steady rate, and all of a sudden you have like an explosion, like they did in Africa, where they went into this valley there, and they found that all the people died. People died, all the insects were dead, the birds had just dropped out of the sky. Why? Because underneath this lake, they had a carbon dioxide and methane build up at the bottom of the lake. And because it wasn't released, it built up to the point where it actually flipped. And when it flipped, all that oxygen and gas, or methane and gas, was released into the air, killing everything, just smothered it. What they have done since then is they dropped these pipes down into the bottom of this lake, and that allows this gas to escape on a regular basis. They don't cover stuff like this on the Orthodox channels because they're so intent on getting this carbon sequestration, because that's big bucks, for them. This here could also be big bucks, but it's cheaper and actually helps the planet. Sometimes I wonder if we're not undergoing a reset of our planetary system here, to where it's a high carbon dioxide atmosphere. One of the things about the biosphere in Arizona, they were going to take and study, how astronauts live in outer space, and that, isolate, and if they can regenerate the atmosphere. And they found they had a carbon dioxide problem because the concrete outgassed. People don't realize that concrete, when it cures, it outgasses, and it takes forever to cure. I mean, Hoover Dam is still being cured. It won't be cured for another 7 years at least, maybe 8. That will only then will be fully cured. So something like this, they took that investment and they turned it into studying how life reacts in a high carbon dioxide atmosphere. So anyway, this is one solution to global warming. Global warming is definitely a problem. I don't know if any of you heard about the Thwaites glacier down in Antarctica, but that one there is a real threat to the entire world. It's a massive, at least the size of Rhode Island or more, And once that ice leaves the landmass and hits that ocean, the ocean is going to rise. Not only will the ocean rise, all that weight that's holding the continent down is going to have a tendency to rise because all that weight be lifted off. And so if you think you're saying Earth changes now, just wait till that happens, because everywhere there's an action, there's got to be a reaction, Wishful thinking is not food for scientific thought, or facts. I think a lot of the geological change we're seeing right now is probably a result of the glaciers melting off the mainlands at this time, like Greenland and that, So anyway, yeah, too much of anything is bad, but CO2, I think you mean, is necessary. Well, that's because it feeds plants and everything, and plants use it and converts it to oxygen. But our problem is that we're cutting our trees down. Look at the Amazon; they're burning the trees down and they're cutting them down, and in the process, they're not only adding CO2 to the air, but they're turning around and they're destroying the ecology of the area from a tropical rainforest into well, it could end up being another Sahara in South America. Because people don't understand that plants put a lot of moisture into the air. It's a system. You need those plants. If you've ever been in Illinois in the middle of summer, like in August, it's plain outright miserable because 90 to 100 degrees there, and you have all that humidity, and it's just sweat standing on you, and you don't get rid of the heat, and that's because corn puts a lot of moisture back up in the air. The same thing happens with the Amazon rainforest. Okay, and CO2 is just one of the places where we get oxygen from. Plants are great transportation devices. Do you know, like, if you take and feed a cow grass on a place that is strictly ground, doesn't have any calcium in that, it still puts out milk with calcium in it. Somewhere along the line, it transmutes metals. That's just life in a big city. So I'm going to reiterate, GEET at proton.me. That would be David Pantone. He has a school available, and those who get our deluxe set of plans, which is everything we got, that will also include the school on that now. I'll work that out with David already. So anyway, here's a question. How do you prevent the center 1/2 inch rod from levitating to the ends, or does it not need to be in the middle section? Well, generally your rod's going to be just about as long as that tube, and so it doesn't go too bad. And on the original rods, Paul would put 3 weld beads on it, and that kept it like centered, as well as within the tube itself. I don't think there's ever really too concerned from it sliding one into the other, but I may be wrong. That's why I would go with the school. Like I say, if you get a chance, come to the conference. I think you'd have a great time, and you can learn a lot. We will have a GEET device there to run, and I'm sure that they will be probably can answer a lot of questions and have a lot of material there available for you to take home with you. This plan that you see up on the screen there, if you just go to testatech.info and you go down to where it says plans, okay, that takes you to where the GEET plans are, and you can get it there. And I have step-by-step plans there. Uh, I have a lot of information on this in our back issues of our magazine. Uh, and I just, sorry, I'm just kind of winded, folks. Anyway, let me go back here. This furnace, I just, keep going back to it. If you look at the top, you have an air liquid heat exchanger on top of this thing, because the top of the flame is going to be super hot. The bottom of the flame is going to be cold. Okay, that's how refrigeration works. Yeah, I learned a lot listening to Paul when he was alive, and he'd go to a lot of his conferences. I've seen. I used to have a 10 horsepower engine, and then at one point, I've ridden in his car, and when he drove up to who we took it up to Blaine, Washington. Back around, I think I was in 99, 98 or 99. I went up to Blaine, Washington for a water conference, and I rode in with Paul up there, and it's going up hills, down hills, and everything. So when these people tell you that this stuff doesn't work, under load, they're full of it. You just have to adjust your air mixture, Okay. And then, off-topic question. You put up the good fight for a long time, but who will take over Tesla Tech after you begin a new chapter in life? Well, when you're gone, will Tesla Tech still be? I am working on that. My biggest issue right now is finding someone who would want to do this stuff. The pay is not good. I'm a one-man show right now. I'm looking for volunteers, people who have the heart for it. We're starting to finally build to the point where hopefully, if my YouTube audience continues building like it is, by this time next year, I'll be in a position where we can actually publish a magazine again. I'd hate to have gone through all that work just for me to die, or for all this work to go to YouTube, So if people are interested, they should get a hold of me. We can always use volunteers and find people who are interested in carrying on the good fight. This stuff's not going to die overnight. I don't think. I think there's enough people out there interested. But here's a chance for them to get involved and learn how to do some of this stuff. You just don't learn this stuff overnight. I have 30 years, 35 years of my life have went into studying this, and being involved in this, it survived it survived marriages. It survived everything. I am still out there, still doing this, this is what I am. This is what we do. And I believe in this. I believe in the GEET technology, for instance. Even when people were poo-pooing it and everything, I believed in it because it puts oxygen in the air instead of taking it out. And that will turn around and in the long run make things better. And here we go. Stan Myers ran his Doomberg H2O, and Paul ran his Chevy Suburban on oil and water. And Maxwell made a power plant that extracts power from air. Well, the one thing I say is one of our most precious commodities in the near future is going to be H2O. I hate to see potable water wasted for fuel. And the other thing that they don't tell you about is that if you run your vehicle on straight water, okay, or on anything that you have not paid a road tax on, then you can go to jail for 20 years. They put that. This came about with farmers. Okay, first of all, prohibition wasn't really about people drinking. I think the government could care less. But the real problem with alcohol was in the Midwest, farmers were using the power of their tractors and everything. So by putting a prohibition on alcohol, they stopped the gasohol movement. Okay, once they do that, uh, they were able to control it, and they controlled the energy field, kind of like you see with marijuana, and pot. They had to make DuPont had forces. DuPont came up with plastic. They wanted to make plastic rope with the Southern Navy. The Navy required farmers in Indiana to grow hemp. Hemp also makes a very fine paper. Randolph Hearst owned all these forests. He wanted to cut down and turn into paper. So what they do is they take and come up with this fantasy of pot-riddled Mexicans, coming up here and raping everybody and creating mayhem because they're high on pot. They say how to make pot illegal. Well, you see what that did. Here we are, 40 years into the drug wars, and look where we're at. Meantime, DuPont got his plastic ropes. The Hearst was selling his forest for paper. In the meantime, you have a lot of people whose lives were ruined over the drug war. So you're going to see the same thing here. By having a law on the books where if you don't pay your road taxes, you go to jail for 20 years. They could prevent a lot of the alternatives from coming up through that, especially on water. Because I think Kentucky's the only place that will allow you to pay taxes on water for fuel. But so all of a sudden, and the way they like for fuels, on regular fuels, if you ever lived on a farm, you're going to see that you have the farm for the fields is dyed green. And if you ever, back in the day when you pumped regular car fuel, it was red. Okay, that's how they knew this fuel you paid tax on, and this you didn't. Okay, you get caught on the road with green gas in your tank, they nail you. Well, if you're not, and the same thing goes with H2O. If you have pure H2O in there, you haven't paid a road tax on it. Therefore, you get nailed for tax avoidance. So yeah, the electric cars they use now, they have special amendments into the laws to allow them to be on the road without paying a road tax. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. But go check it out. Don't talk. So anyway, yeah, here you go. Bibles used to be printed on hemp paper. It used to be to pay your tax with hemp plants. In Indiana, at one time, you were required to grow so many acres of hemp, so the Navy could build the ropes during World War II. Ropes are very important for our Navy. So anyway, I think I'm going to make this a short night. If somebody has some things they want to say, like I say, go to our website and get on the channel there and get the membership, the exclusive membership. Make sure you get the $9.99 per month. There's a $3 one. That's more like a donation. The $9.99 month is the one you want. I'm starting to put more videos up there. I'm just now getting organized, so I know what I got up there. I do know I have 930 of them up there. And I just got to find out which ones are public, which ones are members, and which ones haven't even been premiered yet. So anyway, feel free to give me a call. I think, that y'all going to have a great time, and I'll see you all next week. I don't know who I'm going to have next week yet. I'm looking for people, for the conference. I'm looking for people for whatever. Anyway, Got GEET at proton.me will get you to David Pantone. Bless his heart. And you all have a great night. And thank you for all coming by. And I know some of them, the days got kind of mixed up because we're an hour ahead right now. So anyway, talk to you all later. Thank you very much.